Salesforce just bought a company for $1.5 billion that most people have never heard about, except for about 30% of the Fortune 500, since they use this company every single day. And here's the crazy part. So Salesforce actually invested in the company years ago. Then they came back and said, hey, you know what? Let's just take it from here. We're going to own this instead. So they bought the whole thing. This is the story, the acquisition of a startup called Contentful, the Berlin startup that just became the missing piece in Salesforce AI empire. All right, so who are the founders of Contentful? So back in 2013, two developers in Berlin, Sasa and Paola, saw a massive problem. WordPress and Drupal were the kings of content management, but they were built for a single channel, and that is websites. So both the founders looked at the future and they saw content needed to flow everywhere: mobile apps, smartwatches, voice assistants, digital kiosks. So they built Contentful with a radical bet: headless API first content management, no front end, just pure content as a service. Now, at the time, people thought they were crazy. Traditional CMS was a mature, boring market, but they obviously were not building for 2013. They were building for 2026. And they spent 13 years making that vision real. They actually raised $337 million from Tiger Global, Benchmark, and a few other VCs, including Salesforce Ventures. So when I seen this headline, I knew exactly who Contentful was. My background is in engineering, so there was a point in time where I was building out an application, and the application had some limitations where I wasn't able to create a blog for the application. And the blog's purpose was mainly just to help improve the SEO searchability of the website. And while trying to find a third-party tool, I actually came across Contentful. And when I seen the logos on the website, I was actually pretty impressed. This had to have been like 5 years ago. What they were offering, or what they still offer, is the ability for anybody with any sort of application from website or beyond to be able to use their APIs to manage your content. And what that looks like is you will be able to go to their portal, their dashboard, create the content, and then deploy the content. And then every single one of the devices, websites, applications that consume that API get to leverage the content that you just created within their portal. It seems like a super simple idea, but this was actually a big deal, especially 5 years ago, because the only way to be able to access or have the privilege of having content management system for your website was through WordPress. So I definitely seen the value of Contentful in the past, and I guess fast forward 2026, 13 years later after founding the company, they actually got acquired for $1.5 billion. Now let's talk about the product. I know I kind of got a little bit into it, but let's get into a little bit more details. So Contentful is what's called a composable content platform. Think of it as a central nervous system for digital content. Companies store everything: text, images, video, product data in Contentful. Then they push it out to any channel via the API. Do you want the same product description on your website, app, and in-store kiosk? Contentful is what handles that. And they got some amazing logos, a lot of customers. So over 4,800 brands use it, including nearly a third of the Fortune 500. Companies like Spotify, Shopify, and even Chanel rely on Contentful to manage their digital experience. And in my opinion, this is what makes this acquisition brilliant. Salesforce Agentforce AI can orchestrate actions, book meetings, route customers, analyze data, but it couldn't dynamically assemble content experiences. What it was doing instead was pulling from static, siloed systems. But now, with this Contentful acquisition, Agentforce, which is a product suite within Salesforce, can create those personalized digital experiences on the fly, pulling right content for the right customer at the right moment. Now, Salesforce for quite some time was under fire because they were one of the first companies within a public traded company that actually made a big decision of letting go thousands and thousands of their employees because of AI. Their excuse at the time was that AI can do the job of the employee, so why not get rid of them? And what actually happened months later was that those same people they got rid of, they had to hire back. And somewhat of an apology was given by the executive team, where they mentioned and they clearly stated that, hey, AI can do great things, but we need the people involved to be able to move AI towards the right direction. Now, why does this even matter? Because I think what they also are starting to realize is that AI is great, but the limitations that they have, specifically with Agentforce, is with their static data. They don't have the ability to be able to access real-time data or close to real-time data like they would probably benefit more from. So yeah, this acquisition makes complete sense. The acquisition is basically them saying, we want to be able to consume and share data that has been deployed the day of amongst our customers. So now they get to have 4,800 customers coming into Salesforce because of this acquisition. And Salesforce gets to serve the thousands and thousands of people that they already have within their contract. One thing for sure is that whenever an acquisition like this happens, you always got to ask, why now? Like, why do they decide to make this acquisition now rather than 2 months ago, rather than last year? And I think it is clear that timing is everything. And this deal is really about Salesforce AI arms race. Now, Adobe has its content supply chain with experience managers and Firefly AI. HubSpot has Content Hub. ServiceNow is building a content capability system. And out of those companies that I listed, Adobe, HubSpot, ServiceNow, Salesforce was the odd one out because what they were offering with Agentforce was the ability to automate workflows, but it couldn't deliver the actual content experiences. So this acquisition of Contentful solves that instantly. Now Salesforce has the full stack data cloud for customer intelligence, Agentforce for AI orchestration, and Contentful for dynamic content delivery. I think it's a direct shot at Adobe's dominance in the enterprise experience space. So yet another shot at Adobe from another competitor. But this one here isn't just about CMS, it's about the controls and really who controls the AI native experience stack. And Salesforce definitely just made a huge bet, a bet of $1.5 billion that content is the missing layer. All right, so what's next for the founders? So for the founders, Satya and Paola, this is really just the validation that they needed for their 13-year bet that headless CMS would matter. They bootstrapped the category from nothing to essentially enterprise infrastructure. For the team, they're now part of Salesforce's broader AI vision, and Contentful Tech becomes the content backbone for potentially millions of Salesforce customers. The irony is really that Salesforce Ventures bet on them early, watched them succeed, and then bought the whole company. Nonetheless, this is pretty impressive. For them to be able to have the grit to build a company and stay within it, even though they are the founders for 13 years, is pretty impressive. I know I see a lot of founders that build a company and they eventually leave the company that they created simply because they feel like it's plateaued. But they stayed with the company for 13 years since its inception until this acquisition. So that's definitely a testament for the founders being able to have that grit to be able to stay a part of the team and also grow the team. But this is also a clear sign that acquisitions or venture funds that comes from corporations do matter. So here you have an example of Salesforce acquiring a company that they had invested in years ago, almost a decade ago, through their arm called Salesforce Ventures. So they invested in the company years ago and they watched them gradually increase their value for their customers as well as watch them just succeed when it comes down to revenue. And one thing that you have to know about investors or just any type of venture money or capital that you receive is that they expect for you not just to take their money and to build the product. They expect for you to take their money, build a product, and give them constant updates. So you can imagine as Salesforce Ventures gave them the money to invest for them to be able to build Contentful, and they're getting all of these monthly updates about how the company has been growing for the past 13 years. They've seen that positive trajectory and they're like, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and acquire you guys. So it's definitely one of those cases where they plant the seed and they took the tree out the roots. All right, so here is the part of the video where I kind of give a quick little, my 2 cents of what I think might happen in the future. And I think what might in fact happen in the future based off of this acquisition is Salesforce might make another acquisition that's also still involved or surrounding the entire content space. But to be more specifically, I wouldn't be surprised if Salesforce makes an acquisition for a ad platform, a platform that allows you to create ads, and that a platform that competes against the Facebook and the Google ads. And the reason why that makes sense for me based off this acquisition is that content is only good until you realize you need to make money off of it. And the best way to make money off of content is either through subscriptions or through ads. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to also acquire a ad creation or ad management platform to coincide with this acquisition that they made for $1.5 billion. All right, folks, that is it for today's video. This is yet another acquisition from one of the big brands, Salesforce acquiring Contentful. $1.5 billion is actually crazy, but they've been around for quite some time, for 13 years. So hopefully they didn't get diluted. And by they, I mean the founders. Hopefully they did not get diluted too much and they were able to walk away with quite a bit of the $1.5 billion that was used to acquire them. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. Let me know what you guys think about the video. Do you agree that Salesforce had made the right decision with this acquisition? Do you think Contentful is going in the right direction? Sometimes when you have a company that's as big as Contentful, that has as many brands and people relying on Contentful to be able to produce and manage their own business, they kind of get nervous about acquisitions like this from Salesforce, because usually what happens a year later, they increase the prices, kind of like private equity would do. So let me know what you guys think down below. Add your comments, hit that like, hit that subscribe. Peace.